It is Kieran Trippier. It is delicious! Glorious! Glorious!
Walker in there too. Luke Shaw! Harry Kane wants it played into him. He chooses Grealish instead. It's Grealish! It's Kane! Nothing like this has happened for a long time. Here's the overhead kick from Kane! Palmer finds Watkins. Watkins turns! Watkins scores!
Hello and welcome back to the Gate 102 podcast. I hope you're doing well, and yeah, as always, thank you for tuning in. It really is appreciated. In the last episode, I covered England's 4-0 win over Bulgaria in Euro 2020 qualification campaign. And yeah, a brilliant game at Wembley where Harry Kane got another hat-trick. And that game is available at your podcast player of choice if you do want to catch up, as are all the other episodes I've done so far. But today, we move forward just a few days to next qualifier, and this one was far from routine, to be honest. England versus Kosovo, and this was played at St Mary's Stadium in Southampton, and the game finished 5-3. Yeah, you heard right, 5-3. One of the most chaotic England games in recent memory, and you really don't get many 5-3s in the modern game. So let's get into it. Starting as always with the team selection. Southgate made a few changes to the side that beat Bulgaria. Pickford remained in goal, of course, but Trent Alexander-Arnold came in at right back in place of Trippier. Michael Keane and Harry Maguire continued their partnership in central defence, and Ben Chilwell came in at left back, replacing Danny Rose. In midfield, it was Declan Rice again holding, with Jordan Henderson and Ross Barkley playing slightly ahead of him. And up front, it was Raheem Sterling on the left, Harry Kane in the middle, and Sterling and Sancho on the right, and Sancho replaced Rashford from the win against Bulgaria. So it was still a very strong side, but just with a couple of tweaks, especially in the fullback areas. But it was good to see Alexander-Arnold back in the mix, as well as Chilwell. And going forward, there was real buzz around Sancho getting a start. He's been making the headlines in Germany with Dortmund, and was starting to make his mark for England too. So yeah, really good to see him get another start. Now on to the game itself, and yeah, wow, where do you start? I mean, Kosovo scored after just 34 seconds. Yeah, not in a full minute played, and England were behind. Yeah, 34 seconds. And it reminds me of, although I wasn't born at the time, it reminds me of the San Marino game, the 7-1 win. I think I've got that right. I don't know when, I think it might have been 1993 under Graham Taylor, but yeah, similar to that really, England conceding against a low-ranked team within the first minute. So yeah, it was just Michael Keane just gave the ball away under no pressure really, and the Kosovo player capitalised and ran through and finished neatly past John Pickford, and yeah, a real shock to the system for England. And this was Kosovo's first ever meeting with England as well, and to be fair to them, they came out the blocks flying and got themselves a dream start. And I remember thinking, like, where did that come from? I mean, England had the kick-off as well. You know, England were the ones who kicked off, and yet half a minute later, we've conceded. I mean, that's actually quite an achievement, to be honest. If you have the kick-off and then 30 seconds later you're losing, that's something must have gone drastically wrong, and yeah, and this was obviously the case. But to England's credit, they did not panic. They remained calm, didn't dwell on the fact they were losing, and yeah, just 8 minutes after they conceded, came the equaliser. Michael Keane, who was obviously looking to make amends from his early mistake, he rose highest from a corner, headed across the goal for Raheem Sterling to nod home from close range, and that made it 1-1. And yeah, just nice to see England back on level terms. And this was actually Sterling's 10th England goal, hitting double figures, and it was also his 8th in 8 games. So yeah, he was in a real purple patch at this point for his country. But after Sterling got the equaliser, England really started to turn it up, take it up a gear, so to speak. Captain Harry Kane made it 2-1 in the 19th minute. A classic striker's finish, really. This time with his left foot. Sterling with the assist again, the two of them combining really well. Just driving at the defence and slipping a perfectly weighted ball through. And Harry Kane, who was just sort of one-on-one, fired it low and hard past the goalie. And 2-1 England. And I know I keep mentioning this every episode, it seems like, but it was that combo again, Sterling and Kane linking up brilliantly. And it was the fact that Kane had the strength and the power, whereas Sterling had the pace and the trickery, and yet both could score goals and both could finish. So it was brilliant to see. But after Kane took the lead, there was just a flurry of goals from England's point of view. They scored 3 more times before half-time. The first was an own goal after a low cross from Sancho was deflected in. But then Sancho scored two goals himself before the break. His first came in the 44th minute. Again, Raheem Sterling getting the assist. Just quick interplay down the left. Then Sterling squared it and Sancho tucked it in calmly. And that was his first England goal. And then, unbelievably, just 2 minutes later, literally seconds before the half-time whistle, Sancho scored again. This time from the right-hand side. Ross Barkley threading a perfectly weighted ball to Sancho. And he just slid it under the keeper to score the 5th of the game. And what stood out most, though, was just how sharp Sancho looked. Every time he got on the ball, there was a sense of anticipation, a sense that something was going to happen. He was direct, confident, and constantly looking to combine with fellow players. And you could see his movement was really troubling the defenders. He drifted inside, but he also stayed on the wing. He moved to the left if he needed to. Just a nightmare to play against. And I mentioned how England's third goal was an own goal, but that only happened because Sancho drove hard into the box and put in a dangerous low cross and made the defenders have no choice but to put it in their own net. So, all throughout the first half, the Dortmund winger was making things happen. And he was showing what he could do at club level, and it was transferring into his England form. And that was the best thing, because sometimes you get these young players who are doing great for the club, not always doing great for the country, but Sancho was really replicating his form at Dortmund with England. So 5-1 at half-time, and if I'm honest, it could have been more. England were electric going forward. Sterling was unplayable. I've talked about Sancho and Kane doing Kane things, and it felt like England could have scored more, and you felt second half it could have been 6, 7, 8 by the end of this game. But last thing on Sancho, he became the youngest player to score more than once in a game for England since Wayne Rooney in June 2004, which was against Croatia at 18 years and 241 days. So that was a nice milestone for the youngster, and things were looking good. But going into the second half, you weren't worried at all, because obviously there was a 4-goal margin in 45 minutes left to play. You think, the game's won at half time. But I was wrong. I mean, I was right, but Kosovo weren't done. Not even close. Second half began, and within 5 minutes, Kosovo pulled one back. And it was Berisha again, scoring his second of the game. A really smart move from the visitors. Quick one-touch play around the box, and he finished well. And this was 5-2 now. And just not how you want to start the second half from England's perspective, and the momentum to how they played in the first just didn't seem to be there. And then came the big talking point, the 55th minute of the game, and Kosovo won a penalty, and it was Harry Maguire who, just with a clumsy challenge inside the area, and the player stepped up and made it 5-3. Pickford did get a strong hand, but just too much power from the player. And suddenly things were looking a bit shaky. England had gone from cruising really in the first half to being under lots of pressure. And I mentioned before there's a 4-goal margin. Well, there's now only 2, and there's 40 minutes left to play, and you do start worrying that, what if they keep this up, and I mean, Kosovo would no doubt been thinking at this point, 2 more goals, what an amazing point that would be, away from home as well. But to England's credit, they responded really well. They did start creating chances again. He managed to maintain control of the game again, possession, and England won themselves a penalty in the 65th minute after Sterling was brought down. And Harry Kane it was to step up to try and score his second of the game, but his spot kick was saved. And that's not something you see very often. And the real chance just gone begging, really, to extend the lead even more. That's really not something you saw very often under Southgate. Kane rarely missed from 12 yards. Obviously, I'm sure we can all remember one key one, but yeah, I think this is one stat I did discover, and it was quite interesting. And the Kane missed his penalty in this game, and that meant he ended a run of 23 consecutive penalties scored in competitive internationals by England players. David Beckham at Euro 2004 against France was the previous miss in a competitive game from the spot. So that's a stat that probably isn't a positive one, but yeah, that's obviously excluding penalty shootouts. But yeah, in this game itself, Kane was the first player to miss from the spot in 15 years in a competitive match. So yeah, obviously Kane would have been disappointed, but it's always natural for a penalty taker like Kane, who 9 times out of 10 scores, you're always going to get that one saved. But back to the game itself, and England continued to create chances. Sterling hit the post not long after. I mean, honestly, he could have had a hat-trick himself in that game. But Kosovo, to their credit, they kept pushing. He played with intensity. And considering this was their first qualification campaign, and as an independent nation, they left a real mark. And they weren't just there to make up the numbers in the group. They were proper going for it, and fair play to them. But in the end, England eventually saw it out, and the game finished 5-3. And although it was a bit chaotic and maybe more nervy at times than it should have been, it was another win. 3 more points on the road to European Championships. But I think the major concern was the counter-attack. I think something we learned from this game is that if England were to have more of the ball and start controlling games, then there's always a danger of the opposition counter-attacking. And this is something England struggled with in this game. And maybe, I was thinking about it the other day, maybe that's something to do with the fact that Walker wasn't playing. And he would impart, obviously, we all know his strengths, his pace, and at the time, and he wasn't playing. And maybe if Walker was playing, the transition in would have been better. England wouldn't have got caught on the counter-attack as often. But that's a very small negative. In terms of positives, Sterling, again, man of the match for me. 1 goal, 3 assists, hit the post, and just caused absolute havoc every time he got the ball. And his form during this qualifying campaign was just off the charts. So direct, so dangerous. And he'd actually been involved in 12 goals in his last 8 England appearances after this game had concluded, which is an incredible achievement. 8 goals, 4 assists, I think. And Sterling and Sancho, his first 2 goals as well, took both chances really well. Harry Kane scored again. And yeah, just like I say, it's just a shame that defensively England maybe struggled, but I think Southgate knew that. He could tell from his post-match interview that while he was happy with England's attacking play, he wasn't impressed with how open we were at times. And it's true, you won't get away with that against better opposition. But overall, an entertaining, it's slightly chaotic, but entertaining night in Southampton. England maintained their perfect start to the qualifiers, and fans definitely got their money's worth, making it 4 wins from 4. And they'd actually scored 19 goals across those 4 games, which is, incredible, really. Fantastic achievement. I know some people will look at the level of opposition and go, well, it's weaker opposition, you should be scoring all these goals, but to score 19 goals across 4 games in the international game is an incredible achievement. Doesn't matter who you're playing. So yeah, things are looking good for England and for Southgate at the minute. So yeah, I've really enjoyed talking about this game because it's a game that I remember well, and I'm sure many England fans do, purely based on the scoreline, and also with it being played at St Mary's and the first meeting against Kosovo. It's a game that I suppose brings back a lot of memories. That's all for this episode. I will be back next week to talk about England's next match in the qualifiers, which was away to the Czech Republic. So yeah, look forward to deep diving into that one. So thank you for listening today. Always appreciated. And until next time, take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon.